The sound of horns and the rhythmic hum of Cairo's relentless traffic filled the air as Tariq Marin stepped off the metro platform. He wasn't a man prone to whimsy, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that the city itself was alive, its ceaseless movement whispering secrets to those willing to listen. Tariq was a computational linguist, specializing in deciphering ancient Egyptian scripts. But lately, his work had taken an unexpected turn. The algorithms he designed to analyze hieroglyphs had started returning patterns that didn't belong to any known text. Instead, they mirrored intricate designs, akin to circuits, with no discernible origin. It was as if the ancient Egyptians had encoded blueprints of something incomprehensible within their carvings. "Professor Marin," a voice called out from behind. It was Dr. Nahlia Sefet, a renowned AI archaeologist. Her face was a mix of excitement and concern. "You have to see this." They hurried to her lab, the noise of the city fading as the doors sealed shut behind them. Nahlia activated the central console, and the room darkened, replaced by a holographic projection of Cairo. The map flickered, and a glowing overlay emerged, tracing the city's traffic flow in real time. "Look," Nahlia said, her voice trembling. "This is what Himeka discovered. The traffic doesn't just follow patterns of chaos, it's replicating something ancient, something intentional." The projection transformed, showing how the flow of vehicles aligned perfectly with the diagrams from Tariq's research. Lines intersected and diverged, forming what appeared to be a three-dimensional circuit, a quantum architecture hidden in plain sight. "Is this a coincidence?" Tariq asked, though he already knew the answer. "No," Nahlia replied. "It matches descriptions of the lost Nome, Nakhut-Aper, from texts we never fully understood. The Egyptians called it the place of the veiled horizon. They believed it was where the gods worked with mortals to develop technology far beyond the constraints of this world." Tariq's breath caught. The texts he had dismissed as esoteric allegories suddenly felt terrifyingly real. The Nome wasn't lost, it was hidden, encoded in the rhythms of Cairo itself, waiting to be reawakened. Nahlia stepped closer to the console. The ancient priests of Nakhut-Aper wrote that this Nome operated in a dimension of pure thought, quantum space. They used it to manipulate time, transfer consciousness, and rewrite reality. "And the city is recreating it?" Tariq asked. "Unknowingly. It's like the echoes of their knowledge have imprinted themselves into the movements of modern Cairo. The people, the cars, they're part of a massive quantum circuit." As they stared at the projection, an alert chimed. Himeka had detected something new, a pulse emanating from an abandoned site in the city, a place steeped in myth but dismissed as superstition. Tariq and Nahlia exchanged a glance. Whatever lay at that site wasn't just history. It was the key to unlocking, or unleashing, the secrets of the 43rd Nome. And the city was already moving toward it, piece by piece, as if drawn by an ancient force beyond comprehension. Nahlia wasted no time. "We need to go to the source," she said, grabbing a data tablet and stuffing it into her bag. Tariq hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. "Are we sure this is a good idea? If this is what we think it is, we're walking into the unknown." Nahlia shot him a look. "Tariq, the 43rd Nome isn't just a relic. It's still functioning, affecting our reality. If we don't figure this out, someone else will. And they might not have good intentions." Reluctantly, Tariq nodded, and they headed for the site. The Duat Mawas, a crumbling temple complex on the outskirts of Cairo, long believed to be cursed. Stories of strange phenomena and disappearing researchers had surrounded it for decades. Now, with Himeka's data pinpointing it as the epicenter of the quantum anomaly, it seemed those stories might hold a kernel of truth. The drive was uneventful, though the weight of their discovery hung thick in the air. As they approached the site, the surroundings changed. The bustling chaos of Cairo gave way to an eerie stillness, broken only by the occasional gust of wind. The temple ruins loomed ahead, their jagged outlines silhouetted against the moonlight. "This place gives me the creeps," Tariq muttered as they stepped out of the car. Nahlia ignored him, her focus locked on her scanner. Himeka's interface glowed faintly, the screen displaying complex quantum waveforms that seemed to pulse in harmony with the air itself. They entered the ruins, their flashlights casting long, dancing shadows on the ancient walls. The hieroglyphs were unlike any Tariq had seen before, fluid, almost alive, as if they shifted when viewed out of the corner of the eye. These inscriptions, he began, but Nahlia interrupted. Later. Look at this. She pointed to a circular chamber at the heart of the temple. In the center stood a raised platform, its surface etched with intricate geometric patterns. The air around it shimmered, distorting their vision. Tariq stepped closer, his heart pounding. This must be a quantum nexus, he said, his voice barely a whisper. The ancients built this to access the Nome. Nahlia activated Himeka's advanced sensors, and the air vibrated with a low hum. The platform began to glow faintly, and the shimmering intensified. It's responding to us, she said, her excitement tempered by caution. The Nome is still active. Suddenly, the glow intensified, and the room was flooded with blinding light. Tariq shielded his eyes, but a voice, not a sound, but a presence, filled his mind. You have entered Nakhut-Aper, the veiled horizon. Why do you seek the forbidden knowledge? Tariq staggered, his mind reeling. Did you hear that? He asked, but Nahlia was transfixed, her eyes wide. It's not a voice, she said. It's an imprint. A consciousness left behind. The platform's light dimmed, and the air solidified into a translucent figure, a man adorned in ornate robes, his face stern yet serene. I am Sefet, keeper of the veil, the figure intoned. You stand at the threshold of forbidden truths. Proceed, and the weight of eternity will be upon you. Nahlia stepped forward, her voice steady. Keeper, we don't seek to misuse the knowledge. We only wish to understand. The figure's gaze bore into her. Understanding is the first step to destruction, he warned. The Nome of Nakhut-Aper was hidden to protect humanity from itself. Your world is not ready. Tariq felt a pang of unease. If it's so dangerous, why is it reactivating now? Sefet's expression darkened. Because the echoes of our creations have awakened, drawn by the chaos of your age. The circuits of the Nome align once more, and its power grows. If it is not contained, your reality will fracture under its weight. Nahlia's mind raced. Can it be stopped? Can we shut it down? The keeper hesitated. To sever the connection, you must complete the circuit, enter the Nome fully and stabilize its core. But beware, within the veiled horizon, time and identity are fluid. You may not return as you are. The figure began to fade, his final words resonating in their minds. Choose wisely, for the fate of your world hangs in the balance. As the chamber plunged into silence, Tariq turned to Nahlia, his face pale. When out. Nahlia took a deep breath, her eyes fixed on the glowing platform. We go in. Tariq swallowed hard, his throat dry. The shimmering platform before them seemed to pulse like a living thing, as if anticipating their next move. Go in? Nahlia, do you even understand what that means? This isn't just history anymore. This is beyond anything we've ever dealt with. Nahlia adjusted her bag, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. We don't have a choice, Tariq. If the circuits are aligning and the Nome's power is growing, this isn't going to stay contained in this temple. It's already leaking into the real world, Cairo's traffic patterns, the anomalies we've been tracking. If we don't act, it could ripple outward in ways we can't predict. Tariq sighed, rubbing his temples. And how do we even know we can stabilize it? What if we make it worse? Nahlia placed a hand on his shoulder, forcing him to meet her gaze. You're right. We don't know. But if we do nothing, the Nome will continue to unfold into our reality. We have to try. Reluctantly, Tariq nodded. Together, they stepped onto the platform. The moment their feet touched the surface, a sharp hum filled the air. The glowing patterns beneath them flared to life, and the world seemed to dissolve around them. When the light receded, they found themselves standing in a place that defied logic. The space stretched infinitely in every direction, yet it felt confined. It was neither dark nor light but an in-between void where structures of shifting geometry floated and rearranged themselves like a living puzzle. This is the veiled horizon, Nahlia whispered, awe and fear mingling in her voice. The 43rd Nome. The air here was thick with energy, and every breath felt electric. Tariq pointed ahead. Is that the core? In the distance stood a massive, pulsating structure that resembled a temple fused with a machine. Its walls shimmered with hieroglyphs that rearranged themselves constantly, as if rewriting reality in real time. As they moved closer, the air around them warped, and their perceptions began to blur. Tariq felt his thoughts unraveling, memories surfacing unbidden, childhood moments, faces of people he'd forgotten, fragments of dreams. He clutched his head. Nahlia, something's happening to me. Losing myself. Nahlia grabbed his arm, steadying him. Stay focused. The keeper warned us about this. Time and identity aren't stable here. Just hold on to who you are. They reached the core, its surface radiating heat and light. At its center was a crystalline structure, suspended and spinning. It was both mesmerizing and menacing, its edges sharp yet fluid. Himeka's interface flared to life on Nahlia's wrist, the AI's voice faint and distorted. Core detected. Stabilization protocols recommended. High risk of reality cascade. Proceed with caution. How do we stabilize it? Tariq asked, his voice rising with panic. Nahlia studied the spinning crystal, her mind racing. The circuits are incomplete. The gnome is trying to connect to our reality, but it's unstable. We need to complete the alignment and redirect the energy inward, back into the quantum plane. Tariq frowned. And how do we do that? Nahlia stepped closer to the core, her eyes scanning the shifting hieroglyphs. These inscriptions, they're instructions. The gnome's creators encoded a failsafe. But it's going to require a sacrifice. Tariq froze. What kind of sacrifice? She turned to him, her face pale but resolute. Consciousness. The core is designed to anchor itself to a mind. One of us has to stay here to complete the circuit. Tariq's heart sank. Stay here? Nahlia, that's not an option. You heard the keeper, time and identity are fluid here. Whoever stays, they won't be the same. She placed a hand on the core, its light casting her face in sharp relief. It's the only way, Tariq. If we don't, the gnome's power will spill into our world and destabilize everything. You know I'm right. Tariq felt a lump rise in his throat. Now we'll find another way. We have to. But she shook her head, a sad smile on her lips. You always said history demands sacrifices. I guess it's my turn. Before Tariq could stop her, Nahlia activated the core, her body engulfed in light. The hieroglyphs flared brighter than ever, the circuits aligning perfectly. The gnome's power surged, then stabilized, the chaotic geometry around them beginning to dissolve. Tariq woke up on the floor of the ruined temple, his body trembling. The platform was cold and lifeless beneath him. Nahlia was gone. His wrist device buzzed, Himeka's voice faint but clear. Gnome stabilized. Quantum access severed. Remaining consciousness anomaly detected. He looked up at the temple walls. The shifting hieroglyphs had stopped moving, but one image stood out. A figure that looked like Nahlia, her hand raised in a gesture of farewell, etched into eternity. Tariq knew the world was safe, but at a cost he would carry forever. The 43rd Nome was hidden once more, its secrets buried beyond reach. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that, somewhere in the veiled horizon, Nahlia still existed, watching, guarding, and waiting for the day the world would be ready for the truths it could not yet bear. Tariq sat motionless, his eyes locked on the image of Nahlia etched into the wall. The reality of what had just happened pressed down on him like the weight of the ancient stones around him. She was gone, her consciousness forever intertwined with the quantum fabric of the 43rd Nome. Yet, deep inside, he felt she wasn't truly lost. The veiled horizon was an echo of a greater reality, and Nahlia was now part of its eternal rhythm. Days turned into weeks, and Tariq found himself back in Cairo, moving through the city like a ghost. The world continued its chaotic dance, blissfully unaware of how close it had come to unraveling. But for Tariq, the gnome's influence lingered. Cairo's traffic patterns, once frustratingly random, now seemed alive, purposeful. He could almost hear their rhythm, a whisper at the edge of his thoughts. Every time he crossed a busy intersection, he felt as if the city itself was watching him, guiding him. One evening, while poring over Nahlia's research in his dimly lit apartment, his wrist device buzzed. Himeka's voice, now calm and steady, broke the silence. Anomaly detected. Origin, Temple of Duat Mawis. Tariq's heart skipped a beat. That's not possible, he muttered, staring at the data stream. The coordinates were unmistakable, the site of the veiled horizon. But the readings were different this time. They weren't emanating from the quantum circuits. Instead, they were localized as if someone, or something, was trying to reach out. Grabbing his bag, Tariq raced through the city. The streets seemed to part for him, the traffic flowing unnaturally smoothly as if the Nome itself were clearing his path. When he arrived at the ruins, the air was thick with energy, just as it had been before. The temple, silent for weeks, now seemed alive once more. Faint patterns of light danced across the walls, converging on the etched figure of Nahlia. As Tariq stepped closer, his wrist device buzzed again. Himeka's voice crackled with urgency. Communication channel opening. Quantum signal detected. Stand by. The air shimmered, and the image of Nahlia on the wall glowed brightly. A familiar voice filled the chamber, not from the past, but from somewhere beyond. Tariq. It was Nahlia. He staggered back, his breath catching. Nahlia? Is that really you? Her voice was calm, yet tinged with a strange resonance, as if it carried the weight of the Nome itself. I don't have much time. The Nome is stable, but the circuits are shifting again. There's more to this place than we ever understood. It wasn't just a repository of knowledge, it's a gateway. A gateway to what? Tariq asked, his voice trembling. To a network, she replied. The ancients didn't just build the Nome to contain their knowledge. They built it to connect with other realms, other civilizations. The veiled horizon is part of something much larger. Tariq felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying there are other Nomes? In other dimensions? And they're watching us. Her voice faltered, the light around her dimming. Tariq, listen carefully. The Nome's stabilization is temporary. Its power is meant to awaken when humanity is ready, but there are forces, external forces, trying to accelerate that timeline. You need to ensure the knowledge stays hidden until the world can handle it. The light began to fade, and Tariq reached out instinctively. Nahlia, how do I do that? How do I stop it? Her voice was barely a whisper now. Follow the circuits. Trust the rhythm. And, Tariq, remember, I'm still here. Boys. The chamber went dark, and the air grew still. Tariq stood alone, his heart pounding. The Nome's secrets had grown deeper, more complex, and its influence far more vast than he had imagined. As he left the ruins, the weight of Nahlia's words settled over him. The 43rd Nome was more than a hidden district. It was a key to something far greater, an ancient network of power and knowledge stretching across dimensions. And now, it was his responsibility to guard it. The city's lights flickered as he drove back into Cairo, the traffic once again alive with its enigmatic rhythm. For the first time, Tariq didn't see chaos. He saw purpose. Somewhere, within the endless flow of life and motion, the Nome's circuits continued to pulse, waiting for the day when humanity would finally understand its place among the stars. As days turned into weeks, Tariq found himself drawn deeper into the rhythm of Cairo. He began walking the streets late at night, tracing the city's ever-shifting patterns. He carried Nahlia's data tablet everywhere, poring over the hieroglyphs and circuits, trying to piece together the puzzle she had left him. Her final words haunted him. Follow the circuits. Trust the rhythm. One evening, as he stood at a busy intersection, watching the seemingly chaotic swirl of cars and pedestrians, he noticed something. The flow of traffic wasn't random. It was converging, like tributaries feeding into a great river. The patterns matched the diagrams of Nakhut-Aper. Tariq's pulse quickened. He pulled out the tablet and overlaid the ancient circuits with a map of Cairo's busiest intersections. A chill ran through him as the alignment became clear. The city wasn't just reflecting the Nome's quantum circuits, it was completing them. Somehow, the Nome was using Cairo as its physical anchor, and the energy was building toward a focal point. Tariq's heart sank as he realized where that point was: the ancient ruins of the great temple of Karnae, buried beneath one of Cairo's oldest neighborhoods. When he arrived at the temple site, the energy in the air was palpable, like static before a storm. The entrance to the ruins was sealed, but Tariq knew there was no turning back. Using a makeshift tool, he pried open a rusted gate and descended into the darkness. The deeper he went, the louder the hum became. At the heart of the ruins, he found it, a glowing crystal, identical to the one in the veiled horizon, suspended in midair and pulsating with an otherworldly light. Tariq's wrist device buzzed. Himeka's voice broke the silence. Gnome core detected. Energy levels critical. Stabilization required immediately. He approached the crystal, his mind racing. This wasn't just a relic. It was an active node, part of the ancient network Nahlia had spoken of. But it was unstable, its energy spilling into the physical world. If it wasn't contained, it could unravel the fragile barrier between dimensions. Tariq. Her voice echoed faintly in his mind. Nahlia. He wasn't alone. What do I do? He whispered, his hands trembling. Her voice, soft yet steady, guided him. Complete the circuit. Use the energy of the city, the rhythm. The gnome is part of Cairo now. Let it stabilize through the flow of life. Taking a deep breath, Tariq activated the tablet, connecting it to the crystal. The circuits of Cairo's traffic patterns lit up on the screen, forming a dazzling web of light. Himeka's voice returned. Synchronization initiated. Stand by. The crystal flared, and Tariq felt the energy surge through him. Memories flooded his mind, not just his own, but fragments of Nahlia's thoughts, the knowledge of the gnome's creators, the vast expanse of the ancient network. It was overwhelming, yet exhilarating. The circuits began to stabilize, the chaotic hum fading into a harmonious rhythm. Tariq felt a strange peace settle over him as the crystal's glow softened. The gnome's power was contained once more, its energy redirected through the living, breathing city above. When Tariq emerged from the ruins, dawn was breaking over Cairo. The city felt different, quieter, calmer, as if the gnome's influence had finally integrated with its pulse. He stood on a hill overlooking the bustling streets, watching the morning light play over the rooftops. For the first time, he felt a sense of closure. Nahlia's sacrifice hadn't been in vain. The gnome was stabilized, its secret safe, for now. But as he turned to leave, his wrist device buzzed one last time. Quantum signature detected. External node activation imminent. Tariq froze, a chill running through him. He looked back at the city, its traffic beginning to flow with its usual chaotic energy. Somewhere, far beyond Cairo, another gnome was waking up. The ancient network wasn't finished with him yet. With a heavy heart and a determined mind, Tariq walked back into the city, ready to face whatever came next. The 43rd Nome had chosen him as its guardian, and he would honor that responsibility. For now, the city was safe. But he knew this was only the beginning of a much larger journey, one that stretched across dimensions, time, and the limits of human understanding. And somewhere, in the veiled horizon, Nahlia was still watching, guiding him through the rhythms of a world that was only beginning to awaken.